The rain was relentless that evening, hammering against the windshield of my old sedan as I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles whitening. The streetlights blurred through the downpour, casting fleeting halos on the wet asphalt. I was late again. The family dinner at my sister-in-law's house was supposed to start at 7, but the clock on my dashboard blinked 7:42. My heart pounded, not just from the rush, but from the weight of what tonight could mean. My husband, David, had been distant for weeks, his silences growing heavier, his touches colder. I'd overheard him on the phone 2 nights ago, his voice low, saying something about making it official. My stomach had churned ever since. I pulled into the driveway of Karen's sprawling suburban home, the kind of place that screamed perfection with its manicured lawn and glowing porch lights. The rain soaked me as I stepped out, my heels sinking into the muddy grass. I didn't care. I just needed to get inside, to see David's face, to know if what I feared was true. But as I approached the front door, it swung open before I could knock. Karen stood there, her arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line. She was 42, sharp-featured, with a bob so precise it could have been cut with a ruler. Her eyes, usually warm when she looked at David, were ice when they met mine. "You're not welcome here tonight, Elise," she said, her voice flat but laced with something venomous. I froze, rain dripping down my face, pooling in the collar of my coat. "What? Karen, what are you talking about? I'm family." "Not tonight. You're not." She stepped forward, blocking the doorway. "David asked me to keep this dinner intimate. Just immediate family. You understand." The words hit like a slap. Immediate family. I'd been married to David for 12 years. I'd sat at their table through countless holidays, birthdays, and Sunday roasts. I'd laughed at Karen's bad jokes and helped her wash dishes after every meal. My hands trembled as I clutched my purse. "Karen, this is ridiculous. Where's David? Let me talk to him." "He's busy," she snapped, glancing over her shoulder. Through the open door, I caught a glimpse of the dining room golden lights spilling over a long table, laughter bubbling from David's parents, his brother, and his 2 nieces. David was there, too, standing at the head of the table, holding a glass of wine, his face unreadable. My chest tightened. He hadn't even looked toward the door. "Karen, please," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know what's going on, but I need to be in there. I'm his wife." Her eyes narrowed. "Not for long, from what I hear." The world tilted. The rain, the cold, the ache in my chest, it all blurred into one suffocating moment. "What did you say?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back and shut the door, the lock clicking with a finality that echoed in my bones. I stood there, drenched, staring at the closed door, the muffled sounds of laughter and clinking glasses seeping through. My husband was inside, surrounded by his family, while I stood in the rain, banished like some stranger. Worse, Karen's words burned in my mind, not for long. Had David told her? Was this dinner the one I'd been explicitly excluded from where he planned to announce our divorce? I don't know how long I stood there, the rain soaking through my coat, my hair plastered to my face. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. I couldn't move, couldn't think past the betrayal clawing at my heart. David and I had built a life together, imperfect. Yes, but ours. We'd met in college. 2 20-somethings with big dreams and bigger arguments. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of man who could make you feel like the only person in the room. But lately, that charm had faded, replaced by late nights at the office and conversations that never went deeper than, "How was your day?" I tried to bridge the gap, to ask what was wrong, but he'd always brush me off. And now this. I turned back to my car. My legs heavy, my mind racing. I didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were falling into place. The late-night calls, the way he'd avoided my eyes, the sudden business trips that left no trace on his calendar. And Karen, his fiercely loyal sister, had always been protective of him. But this was a line she'd never crossed before. She'd barred me from her home, from my own family. The humiliation burned as fiercely as the heartbreak. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather cold against my wet clothes. My phone buzzed again, and this time, I pulled it out. A text from my best friend. "Sarah, where are you? David just posted a family dinner pic on Instagram. You're not in it." My hands shook as I opened the app. There it was, a perfectly curated photo of the dining table. David smiling broadly. Karen raising a glass. Their parents beaming. The caption read, "Nothing like family time. Grateful for these moments." No mention of me. No hint that I'd been standing outside, begging to be let in. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to cry, not yet. Not until I knew the truth. I started the car, the engine sputtering in the cold, and pulled out of the driveway. If David was planning to announce our divorce tonight, I wasn't going to let him do it behind my back. I'd find out what was going on, even if it meant confronting him in front of his entire family. But first, I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start. I drove to Sarah's apartment, the only place I could think to go. She opened the door before I could knock, her face a mix of concern and anger. "Elise, what the hell is going on? I saw the post, and then you didn't answer my texts. Are you okay?" I collapsed onto her couch, still dripping wet, and told her everything. Karen's words, the locked door, the photo. Sarah listened, her jaw tightening with every word. When I finished, she handed me a mug of tea and sat across from me. "Elise, this isn't right. You need to talk to David. Now." "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But what if he's already made up his mind? What if he's been planning this for weeks? And I'm the last to know?" Sarah leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "Then you deserve to hear it from him, not his sister. And you deserve to know why." I nodded, clutching the mug for warmth. She was right. I couldn't let this fester. Couldn't let Karen's cruelty or David's secrecy define the end of our marriage if that's what this was. I glanced at my phone again. The Instagram post still open. The comments were filled with heart emojis and "what a beautiful family" from David's coworkers and cousins. Each one felt like a knife twisting deeper. "I'm going back," I said, standing abruptly. "I'm not letting them erase me like this." Sarah grabbed my arm. "Elise, it's pouring outside, and you're a mess. At least dry off first. And maybe call him. See if he'll meet you somewhere neutral." I shook my head. No. If he's going to end our marriage, he's going to do it to my face. Not through a text or a phone call. And not at his sister's house, where she can smirk while I fall apart. Sarah sighed but didn't argue. She knew me too well. "Just be careful. Okay. And call me if you need me." I hugged her tightly, then headed back into the rain. The drive to Karen's house felt shorter this time, my resolve hardening with every mile. I wasn't just fighting for answers, I was fighting for the life I'd built. For the woman I'd become in 12 years of marriage. I didn't know what I'd find when I confronted David. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him or Karen take that away from me without a fight. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time I pulled back into Karen's driveway. But the air still felt heavy. Oppressive. The house glowed like a beacon, its windows casting warm light onto the wet lawn. I sat in my car for a moment, steeling myself. My heart thumped against my ribs, a mix of fear and fury. I didn't know what I'd say when I saw David, but I knew I couldn't walk away without facing him. I grabbed my phone, my fingers hovering over his number, but I stopped myself. No, this wasn't a conversation for a screen. This was raw, real, and it needed to happen in person. I stepped out, my shoes squelching in the mud, and marched to the front door. This time, I didn't hesitate. I knocked hard, 3 sharp raps that echoed in the quiet night. The laughter inside paused, and I heard footsteps approaching. My stomach twisted, expecting Karen's cold stare again. But it was David who opened the door. His face handsome, familiar, with those hazel eyes I'd fallen for all those years ago softened for a split second before hardening into something guarded. "Elise," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I repeated, my voice shaking with disbelief. "David, your sister just threw me out of her house, our family's house, and you're asking me what I'm doing here. What the hell is going on?" He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind him. The porch light cast harsh shadows across his face, making him look older, tired. "You shouldn't have come back," he said, his tone clipped. "This isn't the time." "Not the time." I stepped closer, rain clinging to my eyelashes. "David, Karen said something about me not being your wife for long. What did she mean? Are you planning to announce our divorce tonight? Is that why I wasn't allowed in?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment, he didn't meet my eyes. That silent sight was louder than any words he could have said. My chest constricted, the air suddenly too thin. "David," I pressed, my voice breaking. "Tell me the truth. Right now." He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was stressed or cornered. "Elise, it's not what you think. Can we talk about this later? At home?" "No." My voice rose, sharp enough to cut through the drizzle. "You don't get to dodge this. I've been dodging your silences for weeks. Your late nights. Your excuses. I deserve to know what's happening. Why am I standing out here in the rain while you're inside with your family, pretending I don't exist?" He flinched, and for a moment, I thought I saw guilt flicker across his face. But before he could answer, the door opened again, and Karen appeared, her arms crossed like a sentinel. "David, get back inside," she said, her eyes flicking to me with disdain. "You don't need to do this here." "Do what?" I snapped, turning on her. "What is it you're both hiding? Why am I the only one who doesn't know what's going on?" Karen's lips curled into a smirk, and I wanted to scream. "Elise, you're making a scene. This is my house, and I decide who's welcome. Go home." "Karen, enough," David said, his voice sharp. He turned to me, his expression softening slightly. "Elise, I promise we'll talk. Just not here. Not like this." I shook my head, tears mixing with the rain on my cheeks. "No, David. I'm done waiting for you to decide when it's convenient to tell me the truth. If you're planning to end our marriage, say it. Say it now." He opened his mouth, but no words came. The silence stretched, heavy and unbearable, until Karen stepped forward, her voice low and venomous. "He doesn't need to say it. Elise, you've been checked out of this marriage for years. You think we haven't noticed? The way you prioritize your career, your friends, everything but him. David deserves better. Her words were a punch to the gut. I'd spent years building a career as a graphic designer. Yes, but I'd always thought David supported me. Had I been blind? Had I missed something crucial? I looked at him, searching for a denial, for anything to contradict her. But he just stood there, his eyes fixed on the ground. David, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Is that true? Is that what you think? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. I turned and walked back to my car, my legs trembling. The rain felt colder now, seeping into my bones. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. Karen's words echoed in my head, mingling with David's silence. Had I been so wrapped up in my own world that I'd lost him? Or had he been pulling away all along, and I just refused to see it? I drove aimlessly for a while, the city lights blurring through my tears. Eventually, I found myself at the park where David and I used to walk when we were first married. It was empty now, the swings creaking in the wind, the benches slick with rain. I parked and sat there, staring at the place where we'd once laughed and dreamed about our future. A house, kids, a life together. How had we gone from that to this? My phone buzzed again, another text from Sarah. You okay? Did you talk to him? I didn't reply. I couldn't. Instead, I opened my email and found a message from my boss. Sent an hour ago. A new project. Urgent. Due next week. Normally, I'd jump at it. But now it felt like a cruel reminder of what Karen had said. Was my career really the wedge between us? Or was that just an excuse? A way to justify whatever David was planning? I leaned my head against the steering wheel, letting the tears come. I didn't know what hurt more, the idea that David was about to end our marriage or the possibility that I'd played a part in pushing him away. 12 years. And it all came down to a rainy night, a locked door, and a family dinner I wasn't allowed to attend. But I wasn't done yet. If David thought he could erase me from his life with a single announcement, he was wrong. I'd spent years fighting for us for him, and I wasn't going to let go without understanding why. I wiped my eyes, straightened up, and started the car. Tomorrow, I'd confront him again. But this time, I'd be ready. I'd demand the truth, no matter how much it hurt. And if our marriage was truly over, I'd walk away with my head held high, knowing I'd fought for it until the end. The next morning, I woke up on Sarah's couch, my neck stiff and my eyes gritty from crying. The events of last night felt like a bad dream, but the ache in my chest was all too real. I checked my Finino messages from David. No missed calls. Just another notification from Instagram, where Karen had posted a follow-up photo of the dinner, a dessert spread. Everyone laughing. Captioned, "Family is everything." The knife in my heart twisted deeper. Sarah was already in the kitchen, brewing coffee. She took one look at my face and handed me a mug without a word. "You're going to talk to him today, right?" she asked, sitting across from me. I nodded, sipping the coffee, though it tasted like ash. I have to. I can't keep wondering what's real and what's not. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You're stronger than you think. Elise, whatever happens, you've got this." Her words gave me a flicker of courage, enough to get me off the couch and into the shower. I dressed carefully, jeans, a soft sweater, nothing too formal, but enough to feel like myself. I needed to face David as the woman I was, not the mess I'd been last night. By the time I reached our house, my resolve was a fragile thing, held together by sheer determination. David's car was in the driveway, and my stomach lurched. He was home. I let myself in, the familiar creak of the front door sounding louder than usual. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that follows an argument or a confession. I found him in the kitchen, sitting at the island with a cup of coffee, staring at his phone. He looked up when I entered, and for a moment, his face was unguarded guilt, exhaustion, and something else I couldn't name. "Elise," he said, setting his phone down. "I didn't expect you back so soon." "Clearly," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Since you didn't bother to call or text after your sister kicked me out of her house last night." He winced, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry about that. Karen, she overstepped. I didn't ask her to do that." "Then why didn't you stop her?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter to keep my legs from shaking. "Why didn't you come outside and talk to me? Why did you let me stand there in the rain, David, while you were inside playing Happy Family?" He stood, pacing a small circle in the kitchen. "It's complicated, Elise. I didn't want it to happen like that." "Then how did you want it to happen?" I snapped. "Were you going to announce our divorce at dinner, like Karen implied? Is that why I wasn't allowed in?" He stopped pacing, his shoulders slumping. "No, I wasn't going to announce anything. I needed space to think, to figure things out." "Figure what out?" My voice rose, sharp and desperate. "David, we've been married for 12 years. If you're thinking about ending it, I deserve to know why. I deserve to know what I did wrong." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the weight in his eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong, Elise. That's the thing. It's not about you." "Then what is it about?" I stepped closer, my hands clenched into fists. "Because I've spent weeks, months trying to figure out why you're pulling away. The late nights, the secrets, the way you barely look at me anymore. And now your sister's acting like I'm the problem, like I've been neglecting you. Is that what you think?" He sighed, sinking back onto the stool. "Karen shouldn't have said that. She's protective. She thinks she's helping." "Helping?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "She humiliated me, David. She made me feel like I was nothing. And you let her." "I didn't know she was going to do that," he said, his voice low. "I swear, Elise. I told her I needed to talk to the family about us. But I didn't mean for it to happen like that." My heart stopped. "Talk about us. So it's true. Then, you're planning to leave me." He didn't answer right away, and that silence was worse than any words. Finally, he looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I don't know what I'm doing, Elise. I'm lost. I've been lost for a while." I sank into the chair across from him, my anger giving way to a hollow ache. "Then talk to me," I said, my voice softer now. "Tell me what's going on. Don't shut me out." He rubbed his face, his hands trembling slightly. "It's not that simple. I've been trying to figure out how to say this. But every time I try, it feels like I'm breaking something. Breaking us." "Then just say it," I whispered, tears prickling my eyes. "Whatever it is, just say it." He took a deep breath, and when he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "I've been offered a job. In Seattle. It's a big step up, better pay, better position. But it would mean leaving everything here. Leaving you." The words hit like a physical blow. A job. A move. Not an affair. Not a betrayal in the way I'd feared. But something else entirely. "And you didn't tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You were just going to, what? Decide without me?" "I didn't know how," he said, his voice breaking. "You love your job here, Elise. Your friends. Your life. I didn't want to ask you to give that up. And I didn't know if I could stay here, feeling like I'm stuck, like I'm failing you by not being enough. I stared at him, my mind reeling. All this time, I'd thought he was pulling away because he didn't love me anymore. But it wasn't about Lovey, it was about his own fears, his own doubts. And he'd kept them from me, let them fester until they'd driven a wedge between us. David, I said, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. You don't get to decide what I'm willing to give up. You don't get to make that choice for me. We're supposed to be a team. I know, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know I screwed this up. I didn't want to hurt you. Well, you did, I said, standing. You hurt me by shutting me out, by letting your sister treat me like garbage, by making me feel like I'm losing everything. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Elise, please, can we talk about this? Really talk. I looked at him, at the man I'd loved for so long, and saw the fear in his eyes. Fear of losing me, maybe, or fear of losing himself. I didn't know if we could fix this, if we could find our way back to each other. But I knew I couldn't walk away without trying. We'll talk, I said finally. But not now. I need time. David. And so do you. I turned and walked out, the weight of his confession settling over me like a storm cloud. The truth was out, but it didn't feel like relief. It felt like the beginning of something harder, something we'd have to face together or not at all. I spent the next few days at Sarah's, avoiding our house and David's calls. Each time my phone lit up with his name, my heart twisted, torn between wanting to hear his voice and needing space to process. Seattle. A new job. A new life he'd considered without me. The betrayal wasn't in the offer itself, it was in his silence, in the way he'd let me spiral into doubt while he wrestled with his decision alone. And Karen's role in it all still gnawed at me. Had she known about the job? Was her cruelty a misguided attempt to protect her brother? Or something more personal? Sarah, ever the pragmatist, pushed me to confront those questions. You can't hide forever, she said one evening, pouring me a glass of wine. You need to talk to him. Figure out what you both want. And you need to deal with Karen. She doesn't get to treat you like that and walk away unscathed. I knew she was right, but the thought of facing either of them made my stomach churn. Still, I couldn't keep running. On the third day, I texted David, meet me at the park. 6 p.m. We need to talk. His reply came instantly. I'll be there. The park was quiet when I arrived, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. I sat on our old bench, the one where we'd carved our initials years ago, back when love felt invincible. The wood was weathered now, the letters faded but still there, a reminder of who we'd been. I traced them with my finger, wondering if we could ever get back to that place. David arrived a few minutes later, his hands shoved in his pockets, his face a mix of hope and apprehension. He sat beside me, leaving a careful distance between us. Elise, he started, his voice soft. I'm so sorry. For everything. For not telling you about the job. For letting Karen. For letting this get so out of hand. I didn't look at him, my eyes fixed on the swings in the distance. Why didn't you tell me, David? About the job. About how you were feeling. Why did you let me think I was losing you? He sighed, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. I was scared. Scared of what it would mean for us. Scared you'd feel pressured to move. Or that you'd resent me if you did. I thought keeping it to myself would protect you. Protect me. I turned to him, my voice sharp. David, you made me feel like I was nothing. Like our marriage was something you could just walk away from without even talking to me. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I messed up. I see that now. I just didn't know how to handle it. The job, it's a chance to start over. To be someone bigger than I am here. But I didn't want to drag you into that if it wasn't what you wanted. I shook my head, tears welling up again. You don't get it, do you? It's not about the job. It's about us. About being honest. About trusting me enough to let me in on the big decisions. Instead, you let Karen decide I didn't belong at that dinner. You let her make me feel like I was already gone. He winced, his hands clenching. Karen was out of line. I told her that after you left. She thought she was helping. Thought she was giving me space to figure things out. But I didn't ask her to keep you out. That was her call. And it was wrong. Then why didn't you stop her? I asked, my voice trembling. Why didn't you come after me? He looked away, his jaw tight. Because I was a coward. I was so caught up in my own head. I didn't see what it was doing to you. I'm sorry, Elise. I don't know how to make this right. But I want to try. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild what we'd lost. That his apology was enough. But the hurt was still raw. The trust fractured. I need to know something, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. If I hadn't confronted you, would you have taken the job? Would you have left without telling me? He hesitated, and that pause was a wound all its own. I don't know, he admitted finally. I was trying to figure out what was best for both of us. But I swear, Elise, I wasn't planning to announce a divorce. That was Karen's assumption, not mine. I nodded, processing his words. They didn't erase the pain, but they gave me something to hold on to, a thread of hope that maybe we weren't as broken as I'd feared. I need time, I said, and I need you to be honest with me from now on. No more secrets. No more deciding what's best for me without asking. I promise, he said, his eyes searching mine. I'll do whatever it takes. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our words settling between us. The park was starting to empty, families heading home as the sun dipped below the horizon. I thought about our life together, the good moments, the fights, the quiet nights when we'd just sit together. Content. I didn't know if we could get back to that, but I wanted to try. For us. For me. I need to talk to Karen, I said finally. Not just for me, but for us. She can't keep treating me like this, and you can't keep letting her. David nodded, his expression resolute. I'll talk to her first. Set things straight. But you're right, she owes you an apology. I didn't know if Karen would give me one, or if it would even matter. But for the first time in days, I felt a spark of control, a sense that I wasn't just a victim of their decisions. I was still here, still fighting, still Elise. And that was enough for now. The confrontation with Karen came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, she called me, her voice clipped but lacking its usual venom. Elise, can we meet? I think we need to clear the air. I agreed, though my stomach churned at the thought. We met at a small coffee shop downtown, neutral ground where neither of us could claim dominance. Karen arrived first, sitting stiffly at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a latte. She looked different without her usual armor of confidence, smaller, almost nervous. I sat across from her, my own coffee untouched, waiting for her to speak. I owe you an apology, she said finally, her eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment before dropping to her cup. I was wrong to keep you out of the dinner. It wasn't my place to decide who belongs in our family. Her words caught me off guard. I'd expected defensiveness, maybe even an argument, but not this. Why did you do it? Karen, I asked, my voice calm but firm. Why did you make me feel like I was nothing? She sighed, her fingers tightening around her cup. I thought I was protecting David. He's been struggling with the job offer, with everything. He told me he was thinking about leaving, and I assumed that meant leaving you. I got angry on his behalf. I guess. I thought you were holding him back. With your career, your life here. I was wrong. Her admission didn't erase the hurt, but it softened the edges. You didn't just assume. Karen, you acted on it. You humiliated me in front of your family, in front of David. Do you have any idea what that felt like? She nodded, her face pale. I do now. David tore into me after you left. He said I crossed a line, and he was right. I let my loyalty to him blind me to what I was doing to you. I'm sorry, Elise. I studied her, searching for sincerity. It was there, in the way her shoulders slumped, the way her voice trembled slightly. But apologies weren't enough, not yet. I appreciate that, I said. But this can't happen again. If David and I are going to figure this out, I need to know you're not going to interfere. I won't, she said quickly. I promise. I want what's best for both of you, not just him. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her words settling between us. I didn't know if I could fully trust her, but this was a start. A small step toward rebuilding what had been broken not just between me and Karen, but between me and David, and maybe even within myself. When I got home, David was waiting, his expression anxious. How did it go? He asked, standing as I walked in. She apologized, I said, setting my purse down. It's not a fix, but it's something. He nodded, relief flickering across his face. I talked to her, too. I made it clear she can't do anything like that again. And I meant what I said at the park. Elise, no more secrets. I want to figure this out with you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I'd married, the one who'd made me laugh until my sides hurt, who'd held my hand through every setback. He wasn't perfect, and neither was I. But maybe that was the point. Maybe love wasn't about perfection, but about choosing each other, even when it was hard. Okay, I said finally. Let's talk about the job. About Seattle. About what it means for us. His eyes widened, hope mingling with uncertainty. You'd consider it. Moving. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm willing to talk about it. To figure out what we both want. Not just what you think is best for me. He stepped closer, reaching for my hand. And this time, I let him take it. His touch was warm, familiar, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of possibility. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but we were talking, and that was more than we'd had in a long time. Over the next few weeks, we started rebuilding. We went to counseling, where we laid bare our fears, our mistakes, our hopes. David turned down the Seattle job, not because I asked him to, but because he realized he'd been chasing something external to fill an internal void. We started small date nights, walks in the park, honest conversations about what we wanted our future to look like. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the hurt resurfaced, sharp and raw. But we kept going, kept choosing each other. Karen, true to her word, stepped back, giving us space to heal. She even invited me to the next family dinner, where I sat beside David, his hand resting on mine under the table. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged not just at that table, but in my own life. Months later, I stood in our kitchen, chopping vegetables for a dinner we were hosting. David was setting the table, humming softly to himself, a habit I'd forgotten he had. The house felt alive again, filled with the small, ordinary moments that make a life. We weren't fully healed, maybe we never would be, but we were stronger, more honest, more connected than we'd been in years. The dinner that night wasn't just for us. Sarah was coming, along with David's parents and, yes, Karen. It was my idea to invite her, a gesture to show that I was ready to move forward, to rebuild not just my marriage, but my place in this family. When she arrived, she brought a bottle of wine and a tentative smile. "I'm glad you're here," she said, and I believed her. As we sat around the table, laughter and conversation flowing, I looked at David, at the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, and felt a quiet gratitude. We'd come so close to losing each other, but we'd fought our way back. Not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with the hard, messy work of listening, forgiving, and choosing to stay. Later, as we cleaned up, David wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "I love you," he whispered, and I felt the truth of it in my bones. "I love you too," I said, turning to face him. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it with every part of me. The rain had stopped, metaphorically and literally. The storms that had threatened to tear us apart had passed, leaving behind a clearer sky. We weren't perfect, but we were together, and that was enough. Looking back, I realized that the night I'd been banned from Karen's dinner wasn't just a moment of heartbreak, it was a turning point. It forced us to confront the cracks in our marriage, to face the truths we'd both been avoiding. It taught me that love isn't just about the good moments, but about the willingness to stand in the rain, to demand answers, to fight for what matters. And it taught me that family, whether by blood or by choice, isn't about perfection, but about showing up, even when it's hard. As I stood in our kitchen, David's arms around me, I knew we'd made it through the worst. And whatever came next, we'd face it together, not as two people trying to protect each other from the truth, but as partners, ready to build a future on honesty, trust, and love.